Hello, and welcome to today's event featuring Marshall Shore. I am Brenda Holt with the Arizona State Office of AARP. We are the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to empowering people 50 and older to choose how they live as they age. With a nationwide presence of nearly 38 million members across the nation and approximately 900,000 right here in Arizona, we work to strengthen our communities and we advocate for what matters most to our families, such as health security, financial stability, and personal fulfillment. During the month of March, we will focus on managing debt, maximizing savings, and increasing retirement. AARP can help you make sure your money lives as long as you do by helping you save money, pay down debt, and maximize benefits. We have the resources, expert content, and tools for consumers to manage debt and deal with unexpected expenses. We also have resources to help you plan for retirement and ideas to help increase your short and long-term savings. Visit us at aarp.org/money tools to learn more. Thank you again, and with that, I will turn it over to Marshall.
Ladies and gentlemen, non-binary folks, welcome to the show. Get ready to meet your host for the night, Arizona's very own hip historian himself, Marshall Shore.
Well, hello and good evening. I want to welcome you all to Arizona History Happy Hour. I am so happy you can join us this evening. Oh my gosh, have we got an amazing show for you? Oh, I can hardly wait to get the ball going. All right, so my name is Marshall Shore. I am happy to share this. I know we've got it on Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Frank is watching on LinkedIn. So happy to see you all. Now, all right. So today is March 30th, the last day of March. Oh my gosh. You know, things have gone so quickly. I mean, can you believe how late it is already in the year? Oh my gosh. But okay, so let's talk a little bit about what's going on today. Well, today, back in 1930, it was discovered that Lyman Dam was being built, but as it was being built, it was slowly sinking into the ground. Now, this is the dam that back in 1915 actually flooded and caused severe damage to farmland, loss of life. There is a plaque for that flooding, and I didn't really find out how they stopped it from sinking, but there is a dam there now, so I don't know if it's a new dam or quite what, but it's not the last day of March. Thank you, Doreen, for catching me on that. And indeed. So, all right. It is also International Folding Clothes Day. So for all of you that have that growing pile of clothes in a basket, either sitting right in front of the dryer, sitting on the bed, on the floor next to the bed, now's the time to celebrate and fold some clothes. Now, it is also, the grass is always browner on the other side of the fence, which is a day that is tended to celebrate across the country to remind people to appreciate what they have instead of focusing on what else is going on. Now, it is also National Pencil Day for that simple little instrument that has done so much for artists, for test takers. Oh my gosh, all those number 2 pencils filling in those bubbles and everything else. Do they still do that? I don't know. So lots of things going on. Now, it is also Virtual Vacation Day, which is intended to celebrate the fact that, you can travel the world now from your computer. Well, I was just talking to a friend yesterday he was going on a bus trip on his computer through London. Somebody had their phone out and they were just going on this like 2-hour long trip through London on a double-decker bus. So you can travel the world without even leaving your living room. It is also World Bipolar Day, which is this date to celebrate the birthday of Vincent van Gogh, or Van Gogh. And his creativity and his mental illness basically were paralleled. And so today is intended to really help promote, educate, and inform folks about bipolar disorders and international collaborative efforts that are trying to help folks deal with it and handle that bipolar. All right. Well, what a busy day. So what can you expect from today? Oh my gosh. Well, we've got a little bit of trivia. We've got From the Vault, which is something you may or may not drive by, but wonder what it is. We also have a little bit of Arizona music history, as well as Little Arizona. We talk about a town. And we have a beverage. And of course, we have a super special guest on tonight. But more about that in just a moment. Now, if this is your first time watching, you might be wondering, who is that man and why is he on my screen? Well, I got here about 23 years ago from Brooklyn. I was working in a beautiful Carnegie building, decided to trade it all for that snow and slush and bitter chill wind. And so traded it all for a little library in South Phoenix where there was this rich oral tradition of community. And so that was how I started learning about Arizona, was through stories. And so I still continue that today. We promptly moved into a beautiful 1956 ranch that I'm happy to say is no longer beiges, but it is now seafoam and cantaloupe. Just a nice, simple two-tone. And there's what my kitchen looks like today. All that buttercream yellow tile with matching appliances. As soon as we got here, all I could remember how there was no history here. But I knew that wasn't true because every time I would get on a bike, a car, a bus, it didn't matter how I was traveling, I kept running across so many amazing people, places, and stories. Now, I'm also called the hip historian, which means I get to play with Arizona history. So, I'm so excited because just almost a week ago was Arizona Unzipped, our educational burlesque show at the Orpheum, the first time for burlesque show at the Orpheum in 88 years. And it was all based on Arizona history. So that was a lot of fun. I just got word from my publisher that in 6 months, I have a book due on LGBTQ history right here in Phoenix. So I better get to working on that. Coming up next week, we're going to be down at Baseline Flowers with local buzz, capturing some of the history that was Baseline and all those flower gardens. And then I think Kathy is going to come on as a guest in the next couple months for happy hour. So excited about that. Also this weekend, I am going out to Circus Americana, which is doing its last weekend out there. So I'm so excited to capture a glimpse of that circus history. And also hoping that they will be a guest. And then, oh my gosh, and then we're getting ready in May to do another dinner and a seance down in Bisbee at that amazing Greenway house. So if you want to, let me know and I can definitely tell you how to get tickets. And then also coming up on April 15th, we are doing our Haunted History Tour. You can go on hiphistorian.com to find out more information about that. And in May, I'm so excited. We are doing an event at the Stone Tofu House where people will get to try all kinds of amazing Korean food, learn about the Asian district that's there, as well as learn about the history of the food and how they make it. So that's going to be a super fun event. Now I see Lynette is already found, and Doreen, I see several folks have already found the chat off to the side. If you have something that you want to get to me after, or maybe you have a great idea for a guest, please throw it out. You can hit me up on Facebook, Instagram, email, or even through my website, because I love to hear from you all. And now, as we get ready for Little Arizona, a chance to talk about a little town. And so today we are talking about St. John, Arizona, which is actually not far from that Lyman Dam. So now, initially, this was founded in 1893 in Apache County. It's got a little under 3,500 residents, so it's not that big, but not that small either. Now, originally, it was called El Bandido for Little River Crossing. And it was a thriving community until a local trader won enough in card games to purchase enough land, and that was when he started San Juan, which was then converted, pretty much anglicized, into St. John, and then it was just shortened to St. John with the ST back in 1893. Now, as you wander through, you'll be able to get a chance to go to the Apache County Historical Society and learn all about the Anasazi that used to live there, the deep history that's in that area. You can also go visit Lyman State Park and take a look at that dam. I need to get out there and see just kind of what's going on with that dam. And did it sink? Did it not sink? Questions just wonder. You can also go visit an old pueblo, Rattlesnake Point, that dates from about the 14th and 15th centuries. Right there. And, when we talk about ancient, it even goes back further than that. And there are these, and I'm going to butcher the name. I already know that. I kept looking up how to say it. Placerias. I think that's close. Quarry, where in 1930, they also discovered 40 skeletons of these kind of ancient hippos there. All right. And so, now is a time where I get to stop talking so much and I get to have a cocktail. And so tonight we are having a Coco Loma, and PJ is created. So it's got some ghost spicy tequila, a little bit of coconut water, some chili limoncello made right here, some key lime juice, probably off of the tree in his backyard, and some grapefruit Pellegrino. And that is definitely going to wind up on one of the lists for one of the bars that he works for, because that's darn good. All right. So now I'm so excited because also, not only do I get a libation, but you also get to hear from someone else, not just me. You get to hear another voice coming in. So I want to welcome my friend Dan. Oh my gosh. Hello, Dan.
I was so riveted. I was engrossed in everything. I'm trying in National Pencil Day. Okay, that's good. It's better than folding clothes, I think. But
well, exactly.
Well, this plain old Grey Goose Martini looks like a snore compared to your Coco Mapa or whatever that thing is called.
With all kinds of tequila and all kinds of little tidbits in it. So
you'll be lucky to make it through this conversation. It looks pretty potent.
So if I start getting a little loopy, you'll know why. You can blame it on PJ.
Start. I've been watching you for 10 minutes. You're halfway there, my dear. So I was going to say welcome, but you're supposed to welcome me, right?
Indeed. So welcome. I am so happy you're joining us this evening.
Well, I'm delighted. I love Arizona. Well, Tucson. I mean, my roots are deep. Both sides of my family, my mom and dad, born and raised in Tucson. And so, and I was born there, but I never lived there really, because by the time I was a toddler, we came to LA so dad could follow his career, which turned out to be a very wise move.
Indeed. All right. So, we always do a little bit of trivia. And so tonight is no exception that we are going to do our trivia. Now, we do trivia a little different than if you go to bar trivia. All they really care about is, do you know the answer? They go on to the next thing. So what we're going to do is we are going to go through our questions and multiple choice answers. Then we're going to take a little bit of an Arizona music break and then come back and tell the stories of those questions.
Oh,
and for me, that's when all the fun really happens, because who knows? I mean, you'll be happy through your martini, so who knows what you're going to say.
they're going to jump into trivia without knowing anything about me or why I'm here. So that's interesting.
Well, no, I mean, I was afraid you would give too much away.
No, well, I'm saying this is good. Let it unfold and hopefully.
No, I mean, you can talk a little bit about yourself. I mean,
it's my favorite subject.
Well, because I was afraid. It's like I was afraid you started talking about your dad. I was like, oh no, he's going to give away half the questions right now.
Now let's do the trivia. You know,
okay. And you know, and your story will come out in that. I have no doubt.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good.
All right. So our first question is: Lalo Guerrero, your father, was born the same year as A, the founding of the Society of Motion Picture and Television Engineers, B, World War I started, or C, the National Park Service was created, or is it D, all of the above? I know, so many divergent things. I mean, a world war.
Mum's the word. I'm locking myself up.
I mean, all those basically Oscars and things like that, Oscar winners, who knows? Maybe that was the year part of that got founded. Maybe the Park Service was created that year. Who knows?
Well, we'll know in a few minutes.
Indeed, we will. All right. So question 2. The father of Chicano music is A, Lalo Guerrero, B, Dan Guerrero, C, Luis Miguel, or D, Jose Alfredo Jimenez. So which one of those 4 gentlemen do you think is the godfather of Chicano music? Is Dan just like looking off in the corner?
I have no idea.
Yeah, don't look at the pictures behind you or anything. No.
No, there's nothing to give it away.
Okay. All right. What event did Lalo represent Arizona back in 1939 at? Was it A, the United Nations, B, New York World's Fair, C, the Mexican consulate, or D, all of the above? How busy was he back in 1939? All right.
Always busy. It runs in the family, as I now see.
Okay. So with that, how many? So there's you. How many brothers? How many siblings?
One brother. 9 years my junior.
Wow. Okay. So 2 kids would have kept him busy.
Oh, he was busy with his career. My mom, like most women in those times, she was at home doing everything, keeping the house, raising the kids, doing the school discipline. And Dad was off singing and having a grand old time and bringing home money and throwing the money on the table there. She paid the bill. She did everything. He didn't know how to do anything but sing and play the guitar, which he did very well.
I was going to say, I mean, he wasn't bad at it. So, all right. Question 4. Lalo was involved with which of the following? A, the farm workers' rights, B, the struggle for dignity for and by Zoot suitors, C, the preservation with Roy Cooter, or D, all of the above? Again, was he a busy man or was he not busy? Was he busy doing these things, busy doing other things? Oh, we'll know in just a little bit.
Loose lips sink ships.
And martinis loosen them, just to let you know.
Big time.
All right. Lalo has been recognized by A, the Smithsonian as a national folk treasure, B, awarded the National Medal of Arts, C, the Arizona Music Hall of Fame, or D, Tejano Hall of Fame, or E, the Mariachi Hall of Fame. Oh, good gosh. Again, how busy was he? We will like, well, how busy was he? Well, there you go. We will find out.
Busy.
Right, that's like a punchline of a joke. It's like the lead up. All right. Oh my gosh. Okay, so here you are. You finally get to make your way into the questions now. All right. So Dan Guerrero has been honored with a day in which city? A, Tucson, B, New York, C, Los Angeles, or D, Phoenix? All right. So which place do you think has a day that was dedicated to Dan? All right. So question 7. Dan influenced which movie? Was it A, Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown? B, E tu Mama Tambien? C, Pan's Labyrinth, or D, Coco? I don't know. He looks kind of devilish right now.
I often do.
All right. Question 9. Dan has produced which movie? A, Zoot Suit. B, Lala Guerrero, the original Chicano. C, Gaetino, or D, Activism and the Arts, A Life's Journey. All right. And then question 10. What Lalo song has become a book? A, There's No Tortillas. B, Tacos for Two. C, Poncho Claus, or D, Marijuana Boogie? Indeed. All right. So while everyone is locking in their final answers, we are going to take a little bit of an Arizona music break. And I thought it would be kind of fun to, again, kind of focus on some Tucson music. So we are talking about Los Azaleas, which is a Tucson-led, women's-led mariachi group. They tend to not just feature the women in the group, but also looking at mariachi music written by and for women as well. They are Tucson natives. Diana Ovaleros started her training in voice theater, years of mariachi experience, and during COVID, really got into it. And so that's when she created Los Azaleas. So check out their website and find out when they're performing and if they're anywhere near you, and you can go enjoy them. All right. And also I wanted to, because my first meeting with them was actually virtual reality. There is a group that does virtual reality field trips for students in schools across the state. And I went to, they had an adult night out. So I was able to put on a headset and see them performing down in Tucson, even though I was not there for the performance, which was cool. You could look around the theater. You actually heard people talking behind you, and actually people at the concert talking during the concert, which was a lot of fun. So I thought, let's talk about some VR and how it's helping to document even music as well, which was kind of cool. All right. So now who is ready for some answers? All right. So 1, Lala Guerrero was born the same year as all of the above, back in 1916. What a tumultuous time. I mean, World War I was starting. National parks. What an amazing year.
And he was born on a very cold Christmas Eve, 1960.
Oh.
Christmas Eve baby. He weighed 12 pounds.
Wow.
And the funny thing is, a quick funny story. So he was born Christmas Eve at home, of course, as was everyone at that time, 1916. And when he was born and he saw the light of the night, if there was such a thing, my grandmother fainted, probably because of 12 pounds. So she fainted, and all the women were, I don't know, and they threw my dad at the foot of the bed, wrapped in her, at the foot of the bed, and going after her, and how are you? And then they suddenly looked over, and he had turned blue. It was freezing cold. He had just come out, and my dad says it was at that time he realized the importance of being the center of attention. And if you knew my dad, believe me, That was his life. That's where he
Oh
learned.
my gosh, that is so funny. Right out of the womb and already knowing.
I believe that's true. I totally believe, just like Linda Ronstadt swears she remembers him serenading her when she was in diapers, and knowing Linda and that amazing mind she has, I totally believe she remembers it. So at that moment, he decided, I see, you got to be the center of attention to really make it. So.
All right. The father of Chicano music is none other than a Lalo Guerrero.
That's correct. That is correct. I was going to say something, but I think it gets in the way of a future question, so I'll say it later. So
all right,
move on for now.
All right, so we'll go on to the next one because, you know, there's plenty of stories.
Oh, believe me.
Oh my gosh, and I love this question. Okay, so what event did Lalo represent Arizona back in 1939? I wish I could have gone. The New York World's Fair.
Can you imagine there, as he would tell me, I think it was a local, I don't know who sponsored. That's Los Carlistas. That's the first group my dad ever sang with. And they used to sing at the Charro in Tucson, the Charro Cafe. As teenagers, my dad was 18, 19. They were kids. And they used to perform there. And someone in Tucson, I don't know how it came about, but they wound up being invited to sing at the Arizona World's Fair. And so they literally, the four Carlistas and some gentlemen drove some Model T Ford or whatever they had in those days from Tucson to New York. It must have taken, what, 2-3 years?
And I can imagine how comfortable a ride it was, because those were so smooth.
So anyway, they get to the World's Fair and they do perform there, I don't know, 5 shows a day or whatever. And they did all the things like in the movies, you know, they put them up at the Waldorf Astoria. These little,
oh my gosh,
in Tucson at the Waldorf Astoria in New York in 1939. And you know, they nobody knew what their costumes were. The people would stop them in the lobby and say, are those from Belgium? Are you the Belgium? Yes, mariachis in Belgium. And they go to fancy dinners and they were drinking from the finger bowls. I mean, it was like a Bob Hope road picture, what they went through. But yeah, he represented the state of Arizona there at the Pavilion, 1939.
Wow, that would have been really cool to see.
Yeah.
But I just can't imagine doing that in an old Ford. That drive.
I mean, and how many motels and hotels were there along the way in those days? I don't really know. But anyway, right. He made it there and he made it back. Oh, and you know, well, we passed the photo, but while there, they performed at the Radio City Music Hall on the Ted Mack Amateur Hour. And they won. They won the contest. That's why this photo is that when they came back. That's a radio that they're standing in front of, but they did all these photos with a radio because it was a radio show in those days, of course. And they won at the World's Fair Amateur Hour. I don't know what they got out of it, but anyway, yeah.
Did they get a radio?
Maybe they got that radio. How they brought it back in a Model T Ford, I have no idea.
Did they come back with only 3 members?
He had to leave one behind. I don't really know. But yeah. And he did not return to New York until I moved to New York. I grew up in LA and I moved to New York when I was 20. And for the 1965 World's Fair in New York, he and my brother came to visit, and that he hadn't been there since 1939 and the World's Fair then.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So question 4, Lalo Guerrero was involved with which of the following? Oh my gosh. He was quite busy.
Well, he was very much an activist, though he always said he really wasn't, but he was very much so. He actually knew Cesar Chavez very well before the UFW, the Farm Workers Movement, at all, because Dad used to travel with his band up through the California coast. California coast, Central California, and all that, and would literally go through Wyoming, Montana, New Mexico, Texas. He would tour
Oh.
twice a year. He'd be gone for like 6 to 8 weeks with his band, and they would tour. And when he was in the Central Valley, Caesar would come to the dances and to my dad's dances, and that's how they first met. So when the movement began, the UFW that Caesar and Dolores Huerta founded, Dad wrote a song, about El Corrido de Deleno, about the farm workers' struggle. And it was the first time that the message of the farm workers and their plight was brought to a wider audience, because the song became very popular on the radio. And as Dolores Huerta says, you know, to this day, farm workers sing that song from beginning to end, because he's the first one that put a spotlight on the UFW. And the Zoot Suiters, well, that he was writing all those Pachuco songs in the 40s. He was the first one to bring a boogie and all those swing things to Spanish language. And he did it because he couldn't do it in English. He spoke perfect English. But as he said, there was no way, Tommy Dorsey or any of those big bands were going to hire a 6-foot, brown man. So if he wanted to sing that kind of music, he had to do it in Spanish, and that's what he did. And he wrote the songs back in the 40s. And then in the 70s, when Luis Valdez was writing Zoot Suit, the play, he discovered all of Dad's music. And so the big musical numbers in Zoot Suit are Dad's songs, but he did not write them for the show. He wrote them back in the 40s.
Oh, so he wrote them well. So he actually wrote them when people were wearing Zoot Suits.
Yes. He didn't wear them. He started wearing a Zoot Suit in his 80s, but he was not a Zoot Suiter himself. But he knew a lot of them, and he wrote all those Chuco Suaves and Marijuana Boogie and all those songs. Yeah. And Ry Cooder, my dad's last recording session was with Ry Cooder, 2003 or 4. Dad passed in 2005, and he recorded Los Chuco Suaves that he had first written and recorded in 1949.
Wow.
The Suaves Ravine album that Ry did. He recorded 3 songs on that album. So that's all of the above.
So he was a busy man.
He was a busy man.
All right. So Lalo has been recognized by who?
Everybody.
Indeed.
The only one that never gave him an award or proclamation.
Ah. Well, I was kind of, it's like, I was surprised. It's just, I was like Smithsonian, the National Medal of Arts. I was like, even the Arizona Music Hall of Fame, which is, actually really hard to get into.
Well, not as hard as the National Medal of Arts.
Well, no, not at all. But, oh my God.
He got the National Medal of Arts of the Clinton White House. 1997 was the ceremony. And, the National Medal of Arts is a huge deal because they accept nominations or suggestions from all over the country, from arts and cultural leaders from all over the country. And then it's narrowed down to this. And then some big committee narrows it to this. And then some other thing narrows it down to that until it finally reaches the president's desk, whoever the president is at that time, who chooses the final 12. And there's 12 given each year. And when he got it, I'm making this up because I don't remember exactly, but it had been around for 10, 15 years or, around there, 12 a year. And he was the first Chicano to ever get the National Medal of Arts. And in fact, there had only been 3 Latinos. Out of 12 times 10, 15 years, only 3 Latinos. Celia Cruz, Cubana, Tito Puente, Puerto Riqueño, and Miguel Ferrer, Puerto Riqueño. Only 3 Latinos, and Dad was the first Mexican-American Chicano. There have been many since, but he was...
I was going to say, I hope that has changed because...
Well, Luis Valdez has gotten one. I think Judy Baca, the visual artist, just got one. There have been more, but he was the first.
Has Rita Moreno?
I don't know. She had the Kennedy Center honor, but
Okay, that's okay. I knew she got a high honor. I wasn't sure. Okay, so maybe it was a
Kennedy
Kennedy
Center
Center.
honor has nothing to do with. It's just the produce. It's not even the Kennedy Center event. They just do it at the Kennedy Center, but it's a production team. And so it's not that it's easy to get, but it's a lot harder to get the National Medal of Arts.
Right, but him being recognized by the Tejano Music Association as well as the mariachi is really cool as well.
Yeah. And the wonderful thing, Marshall, is that all this happened when he was still alive. It wasn't posthumously, except for the Arizona. That one was posthumous.
Wow.
But all the others, he was there to see and get all the accolades and everything. So that was really wonderful. And in fact, his last performance was in Tucson, a fundraiser for the Changuitos Feos. And that was in October of 2004. He died in April of 2005.
Wow. All right. So, Dan, which cities have honored you with your own special day?
Only 2.
You're like, only 2.
Los Angeles, that was the first one, on the occasion of my 75th birthday. And it was declared Dan Guerrero Day in the city of Los Angeles. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And then a few years later when, I can't say because it's another question coming up. The Tucson Day was later, but we'll talk about that in a minute. And that's the future mayor who gave me the...
Indeed. And she's just rocking it. I mean, she's doing all kinds of amazing
things.
things.
That girl's a star. She is a star. I love her. Yeah.
All right. So, Dan, which movie did you have a hand in influencing?
A small hand, but I did. They were very smart. Disney Pixar was very smart. When they had pretty much settled the script, they formed what they call the Cultural Advisory Board. And there were, I don't know, maybe 20, 25 of us, producers, musicologists, educators. I think Luis Valdez was one of them. Lalo Alcaraz, that does the comic strip La Cucaracha, but prominent Latinos. And we were brought up in groups of about a dozen up to Pixar. And I would say over a year and a half, I probably got up there 3 times, I think. And the first time we saw it, which was nerve-wracking, can you imagine you're on a flight going up to Pixar to tell them what you think of this movie they've been working on for 5 years? And I'm on the plane thinking, what if it's awful? I can't lie, but
Right.
It was nerve-wracking. But let me tell you, it was just line drawings, pen and ink line drawings. And the script was just voiceovers by, hey, you do the, secretary. It was just raw, to say the least. And let me tell you, it was already fantastic from that first one. It was so good. It was shocking. I thought, thank God. But we did add many, 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 many things to it, really. And they listened, and they were part of the film. I remember the first time I went up, there was a scene where the abuelita, his grandmother's chasing Miguelito with a broom. And somebody said, might have been me, but it might have been somebody else. They said, no, not a broom. It has to be the chancla. Mexican mothers take off the paper and whack, and they hit their target. Boom, the chancla hits you. And so the scene, it's a chancla, not a broom. So there were little things. I remember I was the one because there was a scene when she gives him the little Miguelito, the picture of his dad, and he runs through the next room, sets it on the altar, and then runs out. I said, nobody knows what the altar is. I mean, it doesn't mean anything. He just puts it on there. So now that scene is she explains the altar to the little boy. So there were things like that everybody, added their 2 cents. They seem like small things, but they added up to a film that was authentic to the culture. So they were very, very smart. It was fun. And let me tell you, that photo's from the world premiere here in Hollywood. I lied. It premiered in Mexico City first, and then LA. And in Hollywood, it was, they, look at that. They sealed off all of Hollywood Boulevard. All of it was tented.
Oh my gosh, that's Hollywood Boulevard with a tent on it?
Yes. And the red carpet. And it was, I'd never seen, and it was, I've been to a lot of premieres in Hollywood. They all paled compared to Coco. It was absolutely,
wow.
It was sensational. They were very, very smart on how they did it. Yeah.
That's just amazing. But I love the fact that they were so open to input.
They were, and they listened. You know, it wasn't that it was, oh, well, we had people, you know, and they ignore it. That's, believe me, that, you know, that happens all the time.
Right.
But they really did, the directors and everyone. And in fact, I wound up sitting most of the time next to a young man who worked at Pixar, and he was co-director and co-writer or head writer, something like that. A Latino, Adrian is his name, Adrian Molina, I want to say. And now he's directing his own Pixar picture, which is coming out soon. Really nice kid. I think Adrian Molina, I think. Yeah. So they really did it right. They really did it right.
That's great. I mean, it's like, because, you know, I mean, it's kind of like Disney did do Song of the South here in Arizona, and he didn't listen to anyone.
I'll say.
So that's why it's been kind of canceled.
They can't even screen that movie anymore.
No. So I'm glad to see they've learned from that.
Some have.
True.
Not
Some
everyone.
have.
Not
Right.
everyone.
Right. All right. So, Dan, which movies have you been a part of the production?
I wish I'd produced Coco, actually, but Lalo Guerrero, the original Chicano, is a documentary that I produced with my friend Nancy Los Santos. And I titled it that because he was that first generation of Mexican Americans, you know, who at home and in their neighborhood, they were in Mexico. Whether you were in Tucson in the Barrio Viejo, or whether you were in San Diego or Sacramento or Fresno or El Paso, wherever you were in Mexico until you suddenly went to school, and then they'd smack you if you spoke Spanish. So it was that first generation that learned to walk that line and live in those two worlds, which, by the way, we're still walking and still living in those two worlds.
Right.
So that's why I dubbed him the father of Chicano music in the first place, and then I call the film the original Chicano. And it was important to do, not only, I mean, certainly his career and what he contributed was worth a documentary, but also I knew that through his life and career, you would get Chicano history, Mexican American history, which is still largely unknown, even by Chicanos. So, and everyone is in it. Linda Ronstadt and Eddie Olmos and Cheech and Paul Rodriguez and Los Lobos. They're all in it talking about his contribution, and Dad himself telling his own story.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's good. It's very good.
Well, and I think, and so many, it's like, and, you know, and I think, again, it's like when sometimes people talk about history, they just want to, like, here are the dates this happened, but there's so much that goes into that instead of just a date. I mean, there's all that ephemera. I mean, that music of the time period. I mean,
not just the music. When I was starting to produce it, I think it was Nancy said we should include the repatriation. I didn't even know what that was. I'd never heard of it. We didn't learn it in school any more than we learned about the Japanese internment in school. We didn't learn that either.
Right.
So I had never heard of the repatriation, where they shipped Mexicans and Mexican Americans who had never been to Mexico. They shipped them all off to Mexico in the 30s.
Right.
Most came back because that wasn't their country. It was their roots and their heritage, but it wasn't their country.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like some people don't know the real history, and I think that's why even like talking about Lalo is because it was such a. I mean, he was such an activist, but not. carrying a sign, he carried a microphone.
He did it with music. He
Exactly.
did it with music. He used
Right.
to say, well, I only wrote about what I saw, but that was the point. He became the musical historian of the Chicano. As Dolores Huerta says in the documentary, he was the only one singing about us, because everybody listening to Mexican music, they were Mexicans. I mean, from Mexico, the Trio Los Panchos and Pedro Infante, those were all Mexicans. He was a Mexican American, a Chicano. He was the only one singing about us.
So where do you think he found that strength to not bend and waver? I mean, I'm sure there was probably folks saying, oh, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that.
You know what? It was such a different time. And I tried to get out of him because I would do all the interviewing off camera for shooting his segments. And I would ask him about the discrimination, at that time. And he was like, well, yeah, it was different. And, he just wouldn't go into it. And believe me, he was such a purist. And he'd say, well, I just re-signed with Capitol. I said, did you have a good attorney? Oh, well, they did it. I said, you signed a contract. They did? But I was, when he was building his career, what did I know? I'm a teenager. I'm ignoring him. And then I lived in New York for 20 years. And it wasn't until I moved back and I started to handle his stuff, I was like, holy crap, you should have been rich. Everybody ripped him off, but he stayed pure. He never became bitter, or he just didn't. He stayed very pure. It was about his music and entertaining people. And that was all there was to it.
Wow.
It was to him,
Right. So then tell us about your other movie that's about you.
Well, it's not really about me. It is, but it isn't. Same reason.
Right. A lot of it's about your best friend.
Huh?
I mean, your best friend plays a huge role in it at that.
And my dad. I wrote 18 for same reasons I produced Dad's documentary. I had more and more young gay men, say, oh, you moved to New York in the 60s, but you could still hold hands and everything, right? And I'm like, what, are you kidding me? They just have no clue. And since Chicano history is also, as I said earlier, not that well known, I thought, well, between my gay side and being a Chicano and having my dad, who he was, this important figure, I wanted people to know who he was, and he was now getting older and newer generations didn't know who he was. So I didn't want people to forget him. And my best friend growing up, boyhood friend, was Carlos Almaraz, who was one of the leaders of the Chicano art movement in the 60s and 70s, and a revered artist to this day, although he died of AIDS related illness in 1989. But LACMA, the LA County Museum of Art here in LA, just did a huge retrospective of his work about 2-3 years ago.
Okay.
His work still sells. There's a documentary on him right now on Netflix called Playing with Fire. So these were two huge figures, not only to me, my best friend and my dad, but, to our culture, to our community. And I wanted people to know about them. So that was really it. And it's just through me. So yeah, it's my career and my life, but it's really, those are the subjects, really.
But what's so interesting is like trying to work on this LGBTQ book of Phoenix history. The Hispanic community and the Black community trying to find almost anything is almost impossible.
Yep.
I mean, it's like I found a photo by chance of two Hispanic guys in the 50s. One is in like half drag. And that's pretty much all the documentation. Don't know who they are.
Very little, very little. People don't realize that the whole Stonewall riot was started by Puerto Rican drag queens and trans. Right. They started it. They're the ones that, what do you hear? You don't hear, very rarely. But maybe Latinos who do a documentary on the times will include Sheila Rivera and those people. But yeah, we're yeah. But I don't want to be bitter.
No, that's why we have cocktails.
Yeah, but I've already finished mine. And I'm
Oh
doing
my
it.
gosh.
Well, I was thirsty. Okay, what's next?
All right. So next is, oh my gosh. So which Lalo song has become a book?
Here it is.
Indeed.
It's fantastic. Dad wrote Pancho Claus. Pancho Lopez was another song. You know about Pancho Lopez?
I don't know about Pancho Lopez. Tell me about Pancho Lopez.
Do you remember Davy Crockett? Davy. Okay. Well, Dad wrote Pancho Lopez.
Oh, okay.
And he wrote it in Spanish. Same melody, but about a Chicano. And so when they took the record, he wrote it in Spanish, and he took it to the people who press records and everything. We're talking, well, Davy Crockett, mid 50s, early 50s, right?
Right.
And the guys working there who did not, that olive is stuck here. I'm going to die right here on your show. How embarrassing for you.
I'm just going to click the screen
One
off.
day you do trivia. Who died doing my show?
Exactly.
So the guy, every time he'd hear Pancho Lopez, the guy would crack up. And he said, you should write this in English. And so Dad decided he would. So he wrote it in English. Born in Chihuahua in 1903, on a sarape out under a tree. He was so fat he could almost not see. He could eat 12 tacos when he was only 3. Pancho Lopez. He thinks, okay, it'll sell 10, 12 records. It was a smash hit, made Time magazine.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize it got that big.
Which means he got a call from Walt Disney. Walt Disney, not his team of lawyers. That's what the business was like in those days. Walt Disney himself. And so Dad goes up to Disney Studios and sitting with Walt Disney.
Wow.
And Disney says, Lalo, that's a very clever song you wrote. Thank you, Mr. Disney. And, but you didn't get permission to use the music. That's right, Mr. Disney. Well, what if we just split everything 50-50? That's fine, Mr. Disney. And they shook hands, and then Dad wrote quite a bit of music for the next couple of years for Disney. They were hoping for another, which didn't happen, but yeah. And with the money from that, he bought his nightclub, Lalo's nightclub, for years. So
I didn't know I didn't also realize that he wrote songs for Disney.
Most people don't know. It's in English about Mexico with big orchestras and everything.
Wow.
As Dad said, I was trying to cross over in the 30s or 40s, and I'm still trying. And that's when he was doing the film. That was in 2002 or 3. So that was his dream, was to cross over, just never happened. But then, okay, Sancho Claus is he created this character in the 50s, and that was also based on a true story. I'm telling you too many stories. What time do we have to go?
Oh, actually keep going, because it's such a good story.
This is a good story.
Yeah.
So he was invited to be Santa at a big Christmas thing in East LA. So there were hundreds and hundreds of people gathered at this park, and Dad arrives by helicopter, sheriff's helicopter, in the park as Santa. And he gets out, ho, 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 ho. And everybody, of course, goes toward that. And one man has a little boy in his arms, and he goes, and the man says, Mijo, look, it's Santa, it's Santa. And the kid looks, and he looks. He goes, that's not Santa. That's a Mexican. Because he saw this brown face behind this white beard.
Oh.
So he knew it wasn't Santa because I was a Chicano. So Dad was inspired to write a Christmas song about Pancho Claus. Wow. And I always loved that song, always. And as I grew up, I thought that would be a great book, and the kids could learn the song by, putting a CD in there, and then later you could press buttons, no CD. And then I thought, it could be an animated feature, blah, 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 blah. And nothing was happening. And I kept saying, one day I'm going to wake up and Pixar is going to do a movie called Pancho Claus, and I'm going to be pissed. So I decided to trademark it, but I had to have something to show. So I thought maybe I'll self-publish a book, but I don't know how I could do it. And I have a very good friend, Bob Mackey, who's a designer and illustrator. And he said, "Oh, I'd love to do the illustrations." And so he did.
Oh, I wondered how that came about because
That's
I was
how it came
thinking,
about. Poor Bob. I thought that he was going to do, look at this. Look at her. She's the one I love.
indeed, I mean,
So he calls me up to his office one day. He said, "I want you to come and see some sketches." I'm thinking he's to do some very simple. Oh my God, the whole wall was a thing and the papel picado. I said, "Oh my God, Bob, I feel so guilty." He said, "Well, you should." I said, "Well, I do." He says, "Good." I said, "Okay, let's go to lunch." And we did. So, and so it's on Amazon, and it's a beautiful children's book. And now I'm working with a TV writer friend of mine, and we've written a story because this really doesn't tell you the genesis. It's just about Pancho Claus coming to leave. But where did Pancho Claus come from? How did a Mexican And so we've created this story that we're pitching for a live action feature as we speak. I'm working on that. So that's Pancho Claus.
wow, very cool. So, I've always wondered, especially with the pervasiveness now of cannabis across the country,
You make it sound like a bad thing.
well, no, but I'm wondering, it's like, no, but with the song Marijuana Boogie, I'm always shocked that nobody's heard of it. I'm like, why isn't that like being heralded out of like every loudspeaker at every dispensary across the country?
It's a funny song.
It is. So that's why I think, I thought I'm always shocked that nobody knows about it.
Yeah. I'm telling you, nobody knows anything about us. You think we arrived yesterday. Nobody knows anything about us. Well, more than they did, but it's still pretty pathetic.
Right. Oh my gosh. So I always like to ask at the end of trivia, how did people do? But we all know it's not necessarily how you did on the trivia. Look at these great stories.
They were good stories, I thought.
Oh yeah, no, they're incredible stories. And then it's like, and it's one of those where it's like, and I know there's more. So.
Oh yeah. It's like when I did Gaytino, because it's storytelling. Everything, I make my point with a true story. I don't have to make anything up. And friends would say, "Oh, you didn't tell the story about this," or "You didn't." I said, "Well, I couldn't tell every damn story of my life."
Right, we'd be here till midnight, and
yeah. So anyway, yeah. I love Bisbee. I see you're going to be there. I made my first trip to Bisbee about 3 or 4 years ago. I love Bisbee.
Oh my gosh, I love Bisbee so much. That's why I said yes to Dinner Seance, and like any excuse to get there.
Oh, it's a great. I had no idea. I have a favorite. As I said, both my parents were born and raised in Tucson. And my mom's side of the family, because my mother had a Mexican-born mother and an Irish-American father. And so that part of the family, I stayed with my cousin Alice in Tucson. And I go with my cousin from San Diego, also from my mother's side. And one time I said, I always hear about Bisbee and I've never been. They said, "Well, let's go." And we just went for the day. We spent all day and had lunch and had dinner. And it's fantastic there. I'd go back there in a minute.
Oh yeah, no, and it's like, and let me know next time you're going down. We'll go like hang out at the Greenway Mansion is just, it's like 1906 and nothing has changed. The Art Nouveau light fixtures are still there. The original push button light switches. Nothing has changed. It's such a beautiful space.
All those houses build up and with all those stairs leading up. And
yeah.
I might be in Tucson sometime in May. I'm trying to find time to get there. So I'll let you know.
Okay. Yeah, no. Cause Bisbee is such an amazing place. So
yeah.
All right. So, you mentioned storytelling and I know you do. Now, the only thing I could find is for the happy hour that you did last week.
Yeah. But I've been doing a happy hour for 3 years.
Awesome. Just like me. So, yeah.
Yeah. La Plaza de Cultura y Artes down there is a beautiful, beautiful museum. It's only 10 years old here in LA. and it's dedicated to the founders of Los Angeles, which means primarily Mexican, Mexican American, but also Chinese and Italian. But it's primarily Mexican. It's a beautiful museum. And when the pandemic hit, they started to do Zooms, and they called me one day and asked if they could interview me, as you were doing, for Zoom. And so I did. And after it was over, I thought, I would like to be the interviewer, not being interviewed. So I called the next day and I said, I wish I'd known you were doing this. I would have loved to. When do you want to start? And I started. And they said, you want to do it every week? I said, no, that's too much. And how about once a month? I said, not enough. So I do it twice a month. And everyone's done it. Lucy Arnaz and Eddie Olmos and Gregory Nava, the filmmaker, Luis Valdez, Dolores Huerta, Vicky Carr, Charo. I mean,
Wow.
Yeah, it's really fun. And they're all on the La Plaza website and on YouTube. And it's not all famous people. You know, Garza is a magnificent photographer. He just did a huge exhibition of his work at the Riverside Art Museum. And so it's not always famous people, but it's like oral histories. It's preserving all, you know, I try and do as you do, like 45 minutes to an hour. Eddie almost went on for 90 minutes. Who's going to stop him? The stories were fantastic.
Well, right.
And Dolores Huerta talking about her grandparents growing up on an Indian reservation. And, you know, so it's, I enjoy it. I love it. I still do it. I'm in my third year now.
That's great.
In my third trimester.
So you're working on a movie, you're doing the podcast. What else are you doing? I mean,
in this town, you're developing half a dozen to 20 things so that one lands, you know,
right.
That's the main one. Cause you can't spread yourself too thin, you know, and plus I'm on a couple of boards. I'm on the board of the Vincent Price Art Museum.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Which is on the East LA campus, college campus where I went, and I'm on the board of the Neighborhood Music School in Boyle Heights, which gives free and low-cost music education for children, primarily Latino kids in that area. So, you know, between volunteer things that we all do, and I do some mentoring with Latino filmmakers, and then gigs. You know, I just produced recently a big event, a concert event to honor Dolores Huerta, and it was all music, and we had a mariachi and a jazz group and a big band all in one night. And we had everybody because I spent an hour Zoom with Dolores. What music did you like growing up? And what was your favorite song? I love Billie Holiday. I love it. So it was a mash. We had Marilyn McCoo, and we had La Marisol, and we had all music, and we had, you know, Pachuco dancers, and it was great. Dolores obviously was there. So, you know, an event that big, I worked on it for like 5 months. So I still produce big live events.
Nice.
Like that.
That's great.
And I'm 82.
Wow.
Because, you know, when you're telling stories, you know, about the 50s, everyone's going, how the fuck old is he? Ooh, can you say everything? So, so I'm 82. Still, you know, banging on doors, trying to break into show business, which I have to say, because it's true.
So I guess you learned from your father. You want to be the center of attention.
Well, I guess so. But what I was about to say, which makes me come out a little better, is that, you know, I am like him in that I have to be incredibly busy. I can't just have one or two things, or I can't, you know, I get to my computer. I wake up in the morning, get my coffee. I go to my desktop computer. I don't move until I've answered all the emails that came in from New York and other places all day. Then I have some breakfast, shower, and I'm at my computer to work by 10. I don't leave it till 6:30 every single day. It's not like I'm on it a couple of hours, you know, keeping in touch. And then there's still things having to do with Dad's business and his life. So I'm grateful for that, because if I'm not crazy busy, and complaining about it every inch of the way, by the way. Oh, it's so much. I can't stand it. But if nothing's going on, I want to shoot myself. I cannot be, I have to be busy. And I'm grateful that I am at this age and stage, that I'm still everywhere. And people ask me to go here and go there and an opening here. And I'm very grateful to still have a busy life at this age.
Indeed. So I thank you so much for coming on and sharing some of your story. I mean, about your dad, so much, just kind of that history that we just need to preserve and capture and share as widely as possible.
Yep. If we don't tell our stories, who will?
Right. And people will forget that we ever existed, and that's not a good thing.
No, that's a very bad thing. Very, very bad thing. What is that? And it's from Coco that the Mayans believe that you die 3 times. First, when your body fails you, and that's the first time you die. The second time is when you are laid to rest and buried. But the third time, and the worst, is when you are forgotten.
Oh.
Those are the 3 deaths. I'm trying to avoid all 3 of them.
Wow. Well, and that's kind of so when they got here in the 1860s, they found these canals. And so for decades, they called those folks Hohokam. And so now they're using a newer term called Hohugam, which just means those people who were, as opposed to people who died, whatever. It's like those people who were. So I think that's a much more graceful way of saying, because we don't really necessarily know what happened to them, why they relocated, where they relocated. So
I don't know what happened to Maya. They just disappeared one day. Where did they go? I mean, the civilizations end, but you usually know what happened to them. We know what happened to the Romans after the conquest. We know what happened, but these civilizations just disappeared. Right. They scattered or whatever it is they did, or they were beamed up. You know what? I believe in everything because we don't know anything.
Well, who knows?
So right. I believe in everything.
And so Dan, thank you so much. This was such a delight.
I may have another drink to salute you after we
well, I look forward to we can share a beverage together.
I will let you know when I'm coming to Tucson because Phoenix, it's too busy. I may as well stay in LA. Your traffic is as bad as ours.
Oh, completely.
Yeah, it's bad. All right.
All right. Have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Oh my gosh. Dan, thank you so much. That was really wonderful. I loved hearing, oh my gosh, like Pancho Claus, how that came about. And so, all right. So now we are doing From the Vault. And so I recently did a presentation for Arizona Biltmore for some of the residents through 5C Arts. And so one of the things we talked about, which I thought was really interesting, was this house, the Eisendrath house. So this was an adobe house built by Evans. And so, but what's interesting is he also did that famous Catalina pool at the Biltmore. And the connection, even with the Biltmore, is so the Eisendrath house dates from 1930. Rose Eisendrath was a wealthy Chicago socialite. She had come here to escape a winter war, went to go check into a hotel with her friends, and was told, "Ma'am, I'm sorry, you can't check in because you're Jewish." And she was like, "Oh, that's okay." And then basically went off, hired Robert T. Evans to come out and build her this house. And then she brought in the manager from that hotel that just happened to be the Arizona Biltmore. And from that dinner on, the Biltmore was then open to Jews. And so, and I think it's such an important, that I love the fact that he went back later and then did that pool and everything else there. But the house is spectacular. It was redone. It's in Tempe. It is right behind the Arizona Heritage Center. So if you get a chance, I don't know if they're open and doing tours yet or not, but I know pre-COVID they were. So well worth checking out. So now you'll see why I say, hey, if you are watching on Facebook, please share, because we are having so much fun with Phoenix history. And next week, I'm so excited. I've been working on trying to get this to happen for about 1.5 years. We have on the Heard Museum. That's going to be so much fun. So that's going to be a great show. So that is next week, 7 o'clock, right here in all the formats you've been watching. It'll also be available on YouTube and Facebook after the fact. So well worth checking out. And please let me know, contact me, let me know if you have any questions, suggestions. I always giving a shout out to PJ for amazing beverages. Thank you so much. To our amazing guest, Dan. And so we are going to close out the evening. Since we are right in the middle of wildflower season and so many things are growing, we are going to see a Dristan commercial from 1960.
When hay fever pollen invades your sinuses, brings runny nose, watery eyes, take Dristan. Dristan's like sending your sinuses to Arizona. Yes, Dristan's like sending your sinuses to Arizona. That is, Dristan helps you breathe free and easy, as if you were far away from pollen or allergy irritation. Yes, Dristan's like sending your sinuses to Arizona. Helps dry, runny nose, itchy, watery eyes. You see, Dristan tablets shrink swollen, congested nasal and sinus passages which cause runny nose and watery eyes. So you breathe free and easy fast. So when pollen invades your sinuses causing hay fever miseries, don't wish you could be in sunny, dry Arizona. Just remember, Dristan's like sending your sinuses to Arizona. Get Dristan decongestant tablets.